Yeah, but,
okay.
But it still gives you the priority.
Welcome everyone to the Environmental Services meeting today. I'm put back in the hot seat. Barb's away experiencing a bit of a life challenge, or not life challenge, but she's away getting a bit of experience or fulfilling a bit of a dream. Out doing, I think she's outward bound, Nigel, or is she outward bound? Yeah, outward bound. So good on her. It's a bloody great achievement to be doing that. So she's not here today, but I'd just like to welcome everyone and welcome our community board people, acknowledge them being here today. So Wayne O'Donnell from Geraldine and Gabe Broker from Temuka, welcome. I'd just like to also welcome Environmental Services Manager Paul Cooper to his first meeting. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Looking forward to working with you in the future. It's really good. And I'd just like to say on behalf of the Geraldine ward, and I'll probably speak on behalf of our rural ward councillors, the work put in during the recent floods. I think that there's been a lot of work done over and above what people actually do here at the council. So I'd like to thank all them. I took a drive around Geraldine the other day and there's been a bit of carnage. So I'd like to thank everyone from manager level right down to the librarians that helped out on Civil Defence Day and all the rest of it. So it was a really good team effort and there's a lot of work to get done. But on behalf of Geraldine and our rural counterparts, I'm sure that the rural areas are thankful for the effort put in. So just want to acknowledge that. So we'll get through this. I'm a little bit nervous, so forgive me. So we'll start in the order of business. So apologies. So we've got Barb Gilchrist and Ray Hessel from the Pleasant Point Community Board. Someone happy to move that? And second it, Councillor Bird. All those in favour say aye. So we've got identification of items of urgent business. No. Identifications of matters of a minor nature. Councillor Piddington.
Yeah, look, just reading the agenda. One thing that interests me in 4.8, we have a note where we naming streets after people in general living. I just think that could be reviewed. It'd be great to have a Sir Dick Taylor Drive out at Temuka. There's a number of wonderful people. Times have changed since I've had this walk forward. You don't have to be 98 on a walking stick to get a life membership of an organisation anymore. It'd be kind of cool to have street names after, world champions, Nicole Beard, Tom Walsh. It gives some life to our streets, and maybe we wouldn't have to explain to people 100 years later why we named the streets.
Stu Piddington Way. Stu Piddington Way. So I guess that we'll talk to that further down the paper and considerations of minor nature. So thanks for that, Councillor Piddington. So declaration of conflicts of interest. None. Chairperson's report. Barb hasn't sent through a report, so we'll just have to go with that. So if someone could move and second that there was no report, thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor Wills. Councillor Parker, thank you. And we'll just go straight into reports. And the first report is a road naming report. And if we could ask Nathan to come up with an explanation and talk to us around the new street name. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take the report as read. The one thing I noticed, I didn't actually attach a map to that showing where it was, so I do have a copy of that here if anyone is interested. It's the main road that goes through the subdivision, and that subdivision is part of that Clean Change 22 area that Washington's are doing at CDM. And the other information that I didn't include that I thought might be useful is in terms of the recommended name, Paris Street, the history in terms of that recommendation is Paris is the name of the ship that the Washingtons came out to New Zealand on.
Has anyone else got any questions to make? Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My questions are sort of aligned a little bit with Stu. So, to me, this one makes sense as far as Washington Drive, take into account that, perhaps the reason, that someone needs to be deceased. An example might be if, you wanted to name a road Sir Ron Briley Drive, then you then you might want to revoke that. But there again, your policies do allow for that, and we've changed some roads in the past with Slaughterhouse and some others. So I don't think it would stop. So it'd be interesting to know the reasons for it, because I would probably be more supportive of the likes of a Washington Drive, just understanding and knowing what that family has done for the Wash Dyke community.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's probably pretty good analogy of the wrong thing, I guess, when you get names of streets, but when people actually become diseased, but yeah, I agree with Stu, Councillor Peterson, in a way that there could be some opportunity to actually brighten the streets, or if there was some good history of the area as well. So I'm sitting on a bit of a seesaw, just wondering what would be the best way to go about the technical conversation that could be had in the future. So, sorry, just Councillor Booth, please.
Yeah, look, I can't see any problem with Washington Drive, because it's the Washington family. The Washington family arrived years and years ago, and so I guess I would have assumed if it was called Bill Washington, that would refer directly to a living person. But Washington doesn't, as far as I'm concerned. So I can't see any problem with it.
And I'm happy to most probably second that sort of suggestion idea as well, because you're keeping it tied up with the family name, then we don't have to worry about actually going through the whole due process, maybe changing the policy and or any legislation that's wrapped up around it as well. So Washington Road or Washington Street or Washington Drive, doesn't really matter, Washington Drive. That way there, it keeps it nice and tidy, and we can actually move it forward from here today.
Down the policy out the window.
Yeah, I know, but
Why don't we just go Jules Drive, like I said, it's the
or what is it?
Brought up, I guess.
Yeah.
So you could answer some of those questions.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I think Washington Drive was the applicant's preference in terms of their number one request. I guess it's my job just to bring your attention to the policy. It's entirely your decision in terms of how you roll with making the decision. All I'd suggest in terms of if you were going to prefer Washington instead of Perez, that you use street instead of drive, and that just flows through from the advice I got from our land transport manager, that was a better, street was better than drive.
So what you're saying, neighbours all would need to be Washington Street.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So is there any more questions? Councillor Wilson.
Look, I'm quite comfortable if we just go Washington Street, because it's really identifying who those people are for longevity, and we can actually move it, second it, and get it cracking along as of today. So, yeah.
So are you wanting to move that, Councillor Wilson? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Look, I can't. What's the reason? Why drive? Their preference is drive. What? Just because it's our transport manager's opinion should be street doesn't mean we need to do that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the reason for street was just that was consistent with the other streets around that Wash Dyke flat area. That other roads were called street rather than drive.
So there's no real reason why it has to be drive or street.
It could be drive over street. Yes, that's correct.
Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you could get Susan.
Yeah, hi, through you, Mr. Chair. It comes down through our policy in regards to the way we use various road name types. And so street is considered most appropriate for that industrial area. It's consistent with the rest of Washdyke. You know, we have Doncaster Street, Lawton Street, Trinigloss Street, Meadows Road. So it's consistent with the Washdyke area. Yeah. Oh, I suppose the reason is that it aligns with the policy that we work under. But if there's a decision that council wishes to make, then
So I guess, oh, sorry. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chair. Well, look, I'm struggling to wonder why a drive isn't appropriate. You know, I think Washington Drive, that's been requested, makes sense to me. I don't know why we'd be restricted to name street at all. I really don't. This is something that's standing on its own 2 feet now. The other names of our city and towns have been prominent people in the past, and they endure, and this will endure, I'm sure, as has been said before, because the family's been here all that long time, the Washingtons. So there is a good reason for this to endure. So I don't think there's any reason to be nervous about Washington Drive at all. I'd fully support it. I'll move it. Yeah. I'll move that we name Washington Drive.
Yep.
Okay, so it's been moved by councillor Lyon and seconded by councillor Wills to change the recommendation to Washington Drive. All those in favour say aye. All those against? So we're happy with Washington Drive. Thanks, Nathan. Thank you. Right, next we've got a conversation around the sirens, the civil defence sirens. So we'll have Lamorna Cooper come up and talk to us through that. Thanks, Lamorna.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the paper that's before you now is with regards to our siren system. I'd like to propose that it's taken as read. There are a couple of items within it, and they refer to, I guess, the categorisation of the sirens as to whether they require replacing, upgrading, or removal completely. And the costs associated with those are laid out in 21, and the supporting documentation is there from the consultant as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the proposals.
Thanks for that, Lamorna. We'll just ask councillor Pennington.
Hi, Lamorna, just a question. Why is decommissioning so expensive?
The main reason for that is the cost associated with getting the poles safely out of the ground and replacing the condition of the ground to what's around it. Yeah. So it requires heavy machinery to actually get those poles out. They're quite big.
Are we keen to do it? Just the usual process.
Yeah, just the usual process. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Tony. Councillor Boo.
Why wouldn't you leave them there and simply remove the mechanical and put the new electronic on top of the poles? Because they're obviously been identified as in the right places, and the power's obviously already there and the network's already there.
Sure. So some of the poles are what we would consider to be substandard. Some of them need upgrading to support the larger arrays for those areas where we've identified there is an ongoing risk and they need to be replaced. Those that need decommissioning, we could potentially leave the poles there, but then we'd be looking at them being potentially a hazard down the track. because they need to be reviewed in terms of their safety. We've had a failure and we've had a couple of others that have needed to be replaced because they've gone well past their use by date. So I guess it's all about the safety of the public and the fact that they are right beside roadways and pathways.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Booth. Is there any more questions for Lamorna? Okay, so thank you, councillor Parker. Moving the recommendation. So the recommendation of the Emergency Management Unit upgrade 3 electronic sirens at Caroline Bay and Perry, or decommission 10 selected sirens, replace 8 critical sirens, and undertake public education program to support and advise community. So we've got a moved by councillor Parker, seconded by councillor Bird. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lamorna, for that. Very informative. Thank you. Right, we'll just. Thank you. So we'll just move on to 7.3, final consideration of plan change 22 and operative date. Can we just ask Nathan to come back up? Thanks, Nathan. And talk to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This should be pretty straightforward in terms of plan change 22. So this is the final step in the process. So that is set out in the report. So I'll take that as read. Essentially, what I'm asking the committee to do is to make its final approval of that plan change, which is the changing from rural to industrial L at Washite Flat, the land at Washington Zone, and setting a date from which that plan change will become operative. So that's the date when we incorporate it into the district plan and it becomes seamless then.
Thanks, Nathan, for that. So the recommendation approved plan change 22 and approved plan change becoming operative from the 1st of July. Do we need to do those separately, Nathan, or can we do those together? Or
I think you can do them together.
do them together? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's been approved already. So have we got a mover for that? Happy to move, councillor Wills. Thank you. Seconder. Councillor O'Reilly. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Right, we're going quite well, aren't we? So the last thing on our agenda today is appointment of the members to the District Licensing Committee, and I'll ask Debbie if she's here.
I'm happy to speak to that report,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul.
The report, if it can be taken as read, please. The change since the writing of this report would be that there was a nomination for councillor Piddington to become a member of the District Licensing Committee, as well as a renewal for councillor Bird. But other than that, it's as read, Mr. Chair.
Pretty much is, yeah, excellent.
Happy to answer questions.
Anyone got a question for Paul today regarding that? Happy to move. Thank you, councillor Wood. Oh, sorry, let's come up as me. But okay, so being moved by councillor Wills. We got a seconder? Oh, yep. So, got all that. Joe? And happy to second by, thank you, Mayor Nigel. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could just make sure that councillor Piddington is named as a new member as well as a renewal for councillor Bird.
So do we need to please,
I think we can read all at the same time. If you're comfortable with that, it's just be adding to the recommendation.
that councillor Piddington, yeah.
that councillor Pennington be appointed for a
I
period.
think we're just on the nomination.
Yeah, are they happy with councillor Pennington?
Oh, yeah.
And that will go on there.
Okay, sorry, I've just jumped the gun a wee bit.
Moving.
This one.
Yeah,
and the other
yeah.
one, they're right.
But we added, we can just put that as an amendment.
Recommendation.
We can put that as an amendment.
As an
Councillor-
amendment?
Yeah, just put it as an amendment to the motion.
Well, it's just a separate motion, because this is a
So
paper.
you just do that portion.
You just do a new motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just put it to the members that councillor Pennington be nominated for the next 3 years.
I'm
And
happy to move that.
happy to move that. So councillor Wills, Mayor Nigel. And that's it. And all those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And could I just make a suggestion as well through you, Mr. Chair, is also that maybe a letter of acknowledgement goes out to Mr. Dave Jack, acknowledging his time and contribution to the committee as well over this period of number of years.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, councillor Wills. I've asked for the environmental compliance manager to take care of that, and I did speak to Dave last week and thanked him for his service on the committee as well, personally.
So, consideration of minutes tomorrow night, you just have to go through that.
If there is anything.
Because it was put forward for council. So do we need to revisit, obviously considerations, consideration of urgent business items, there was none, consideration of minor nature matters, councillor Pennington.
Oh, look, I think everyone's on board. Yeah, I'd just like to move that to make it easy for the council officers who are obviously just following our rules, that we delete the rule that you have to be passed to be considered. Just consider street names on their merits. That's all it needs to be, really.
You know,
Mr. Chair, there might just be a process that we need to, we probably have to consult potentially on even minor changes. I'm not sure, but
so the way I understand, you can't make a recommendation, but we can consider a policy
And ask for
review of how that states. Yeah, so we could refer that to you, Paul, to give us that report, obviously. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to look at that and see if that change can be made within the policy.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, sorry, councillor Booth.
I think it's just a common sense thing, and common sense prevails. And it was a bit like being told we could only call it a street. And, for goodness sake, Washington, if it had been a specific name, Bill Washington, that might have been different. But, I think it's just common sense.
Thank you. So with no further ado, that's it. That is the end of the Environmental Services meeting for today. Thank you for coming.